Welcome to Real Herbalism Radio, show 220, recorded at Big Dog Studio. Today's show is brought to you in part by the Herbal Nerd Society.
Check out the Herbal Nerd Society. Learn more at practicalherbalist.com. Click on the Join the Herbal Nerd Society tab, and you'll get all the scoop.
Great. So this podcast
that you are about to listen to was recorded in 2018, and then we held it, waiting for Thomas to put together something big and special and exciting. So you guys are going to want to watch the Eclectic School of Herbal Medicine over the upcoming months, because I know he's got big news coming out soon. For now, you can enjoy the show.
Many of us have heard of herb camps and herbal retreats, but rarely do we connect those to the old European concept of the Convalescent Health Retreat or the Indian practice of Ayurvedic Panchakarma therapy. Today we're talking with Thomas Easley, director of the School of Eclectic Herbalism and founder of Functional Herbalism, about the value of full-immersion herbal healing. Now here are your hosts, Candace Hunter and Sue Lupe.
I'm Candace Hunter.
And I'm Sue Lupe.
And welcome to Real Herbalism Radio.
Welcome, Thomas.
Hi, Sue.
So wonderful to have you back.
It's good to be here.
It's so very good. So one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is all these herb camps and herbal retreats and all of that. And I was thinking about how those connect with that old British phrase about, I'm going to retreat to Bath. My doctor says I should do that.
Well,
I can't remember what they called it, but
so actually you're going to have to tell me more about herb camps and herb retreats, because that's not a thing where I'm at. Is that a thing here on the West Coast?
Well, most of what I've heard a few people are going for like spa-like weekends.
Yeah,
so it's
spas.
really more spa-like. It's not because I've got an issue. It's more like I want to retreat and get away from the hectic lifestyle and all of that. And I just
They'll have massage therapy in there. And I don't know that they're dealing with herbalists. I mean, we should be there.
You should go have a spa and check out and see what they're doing.
Well, I don't mind people touching me.
Oh, there you go. I could go for a spa. I don't mind the right people touching me.
Research. It's research.
Yes, research. Research.
Spies.
But
I might have to talk to the bookkeeper about that.
I think the concept is solid, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about holistic health, you don't get more holistic than herbalist. At least in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I know that there are retreat centers with medical directors and naturopaths, but where are the herbalists at?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's true.
So
that's very true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it stands to reason that if you're struggling with stress, for instance, and just getting away even for 3 or 4 days into an environment where you're eating a plant-based diet and you're having quiet, and perhaps people are leading meditation sessions or yoga sessions, and if that's healthful, how much further could you take it if you were looking at for someone who really has a much bigger problem than just some stress?
I did have a friend who just got back from a month-long yoga training in India.
Oh.
And it was sun up to sundown yoga. And about halfway through, they were having some issues with the physical acts that they were doing, and they wanted to pull out of the program and stop at 2 weeks instead of the full 4. And long story short, the director there said, "No, you can't. In addition, you get 2 hours of meditation every day at lunchtime."
Yeah.
And so they started with just an amazing meditation instructor, and within a few days they had moved past the physical limitations that had been preventing them from doing this thing, and said it was just the most transformative experience of their life. And I also have wondered for a long time, like, what if that was available, right? What type of success could you see if there were no limitations? And I think the biggest limitation is compliance, right?
Oh, it's so true. I'm an herbal consultant too, so is Candace, and there are so many patients that have come through and be like, I am at their beck and call. You sweetheart, you call me, but they won't.
Right.
They
Right.
won't. They're
Or they come back to you on this next visit and they say, oh, yeah, I did all those things. And you're like, let me see the tincture bottle. Oh, look, right there. I can tell by just looking
you
at the
haven't been
level.
taking the dose.
Yeah.
You know, I can smell meat in your apartment here.
Yeah.
You're on the gout diet.
Right.
You're not supposed to be eating beef.
Right. Right.
You know, they
Yeah.
just not that you want to force them, but you want to have a
Right.
space where they can comply.
Compliance can be really challenging.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you got roommates,
we do a simple program called the Shred, which is just really going gluten-free, dairy-free, you know, for 10 days. It's really short. It's hard to comply to that sometimes, you know?
And like, I'm not, when I have compliance issues with clients, I'm not blaming them. Right.
No, life is hard.
It's
That's
freaking
why.
hard. Like,
That's why compliance, even on that simple shred, life gets in your way. You're 3 days in, and you weren't expecting, you know, to get the call from the school, and now you've got to go down and deal with something for your kid or whatever, and you're stressed out. And God, that candy bar, that chocolate bar, just sounds like it would be an excellent supper.
But you need something to pull yourself out of that regular routine to break the other routines that are crippling you, that are literally crippling you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have the vitality and the resources to do that at home yourself.
Yeah, the support.
And sometimes you don't. Like
Right.
I have a cookie problem, right? My problem is if I have cookies in front of me, I eat them.
Right.
Yes, that is a problem.
If I don't have cookies in front of me, I'm a cookie monster, right? But if I don't buy cookies, I don't eat cookies. That's my secret. Like my compliance is somebody else needs to shop. Because, because if I walk into the store, I'm going to buy some cookies.
We usually one of those Harry Potter folding things for you so that you can't even see the cookie aisle.
Right. So like, I've been doing this since I was 14 years old. I was raised in herbalism and natural health. My entire life has been about healing and herbalism.
And a cookie aversion.
And I have a cookie issue, right? Like, I can't imagine what somebody who puts in 60 hours in a bullshit job in this crazy, stressful culture that we live in that has no education on health. I can't imagine what they go through.
Right, right.
And so where I'm at is what if compliance wasn't an issue, right? What if people could go to a place and be fed the food? Not that like the one diet that fixes everybody, but like something for them.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Just buy my book in the program and
Oh,
it'll all be yours.
$12.99. Yeah. What if you could go someplace and have healthy food cooked for you and take cooking classes to learn how to cook healthy for yourself when you leave there?
Right.
What if in that place you had somebody to go on a walk with you? What if in that place you could soak in a hot tub or get a massage or take the yoga class? Or what if, and here's a radical idea, you could actually see an herbalist instead of somebody else.
Yeah, you could see it, an herbalist like every day.
Like, so all of these ideas were floating through my head, and I've had a really varied practice. I've seen clients out of the back of health food stores and at Starbucks and, and mobile clinics in Haiti, and I've made house calls, and I have always enjoyed that model. And so I had this idea, like, what if we could do those things for a select number of people? And I brought in a handful of people to our school, and they've stayed for, 3 weeks or a couple of months. And I've been able to show them how to cook. The model that I've used on just a handful of people, and so I don't know how scalable it is and how well it would work, but the model that I've used is I see them at like 8, 12, and 5, 3 times a day. 3 times a day I can look at their tongue and I can take their pulse and I can ask how they're feeling and I can tweak their formulas and add this on and say, hey, tomorrow, why don't we try this? And, there's more holism in that type of environment than in any other type of practice that I have personally done. And I've seen some really remarkable results. And I think that this is, like the traditional or a traditional approach.
Yeah, it reminds me of like what Nick Polizzi's doing with the sacred science. He's a shaman, or he's a shamanic. He works with shamans, and he's. I can't say he is a shaman, but he's learning. He's and I don't know how.
He's been bringing people to shamanism in the Andes.
Yep. So he's been doing intensive programs where it's just a handful of people that go. And the medicine man comes and does exactly what you're saying. 3 times a day comes through. They provide all the food, so the person that's healing doesn't have to cook for themselves and all of that, and gets the diet that's going to be right for what they're doing. And it's really quite intensive, but he's seen some remarkable results. I know this was something that was done, in like Indian Ayurvedic traditions. They have the practice of Panchakarma, which is often done in a clinic-like setting where you go and you go through all the different pieces of it, and you're there the whole time. So it's a similar type of thing. I would bet the traditional Chinese herbalism has something similar. I know old European, that was a common practice in Victorian England.
Yeah,
and before.
There's a tradition in Western herbalism of if you have cancer or some incurable disease, you go and live with your herbalist until you get better or die.
Yeah.
So that type of care is not outside of the realm of possibility, nor is it outside the realm of our history. But it's difficult to do now. The facilities required and the time required, and the capitalism money issue. The
capitalism money issue, I think, stops a lot of people even from doing the simple, small things they could do for themselves. Like you can hire a personal chef. You don't have to be a super wealthy person. You could do that in theory for a short duration, 2 to 4 weeks or something like that, and learn from that person. You could theoretically do that.
Right.
But there's the capitalism and the money that becomes expensive, know. And I just even think about, taking a month to go to a retreat center. How do you pay your mortgage during that month?
Take out the going to a retreat center just to take a month off.
Exactly. Right. Even just take a month off. How do you pay your mortgage that month?
I couldn't.
I think for people that are very ill, they're going to have to take a month off anyway. So they might as well take a month off healing rather than take a month off
dying.
You're right, or struggling or whatever their thing is. Some people are so sick.
Yes.
If you were on SSI, for example, you were so sick that the government has said, this is how we're just kind of keeping you alive for a while. So here's your monthly check.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there like that.
Yeah.
So to be able to have a place where you can learn something new and change your life, it's worth every penny.
Yeah.
Well,
so what would that look like if you were your dream?
Yeah,
like if you could manifest this, what would that look like?
This is my dream, is to have a place where people can go to get better. And what it looks like a handful of times is, we have a 500-acre botanical sanctuary and a school, and we have extra rooms. And so I'm taking on a handful of people. And they get the meals and the cooking classes and the herbs and the time in nature and the walks. And so my, case last year was really interesting. So I had a 30-year-old come to me with a presumptive diagnosis of Crohn's disease. They hadn't done the colonoscopy yet, but the imaging showed inflammation in the large intestine, averaging between 25 and 30 bloody bowel movements a day.
Oh, ouch.
And
I can't imagine.
I had them to 1 normal bowel movement a day in 8 days.
Wow.
And they stayed for 2 months, culminating their experience with a 10-day water fast.
Nice.
that completely changed their life. They lost 30 pounds. And weight loss is not what we're going for.
No,
right?
no.
But a side effect of
Yeah.
getting healthy and addressing their undiagnosed sleep apnea and calming down their inflammation in their large intestines and eliminating their food allergens and becoming nutritionally replete. And, a side effect of all of this was significant weight loss. When they came, they were so anemic that they couldn't walk, 50 yards without
without getting
panting
exhausted.
and without
Yeah.
being completely exhausted.
Right.
And by the time they left, they were hiking 2.5 miles, no problem.
Nice. Oh, that's
And,
beautiful.
Must have felt so good for them.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
they just got their life back.
Yeah, really, for, a 30-year-old
Yeah.
to be in such poor health and to regain their health in such a relatively short time period
Right.
was life-changing. They've continued their
Yeah.
health practices
Good.
and they're now, they had OCI and costochondritis and all of these inflammatory structural issues. It's gone. They're,
Yeah.
you
The body truly will perform miracles if you give it the opportunity.
yeah, I mean,
Man.
you have to give it the basic nutrients that it needs,
Mhm.
and you have to get out of its way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, a lot of the problems of chronic disease, I believe, occur because we just do things continually to get in the way of our
Yes.
innate ability to heal.
Yes. I bet you that client had some pretty profound emotional breakthroughs too.
They did.
Probably dealt with a lot of stuff that was,
Yeah.
trauma
Yeah,
and
so
whatnot.
actually for that client, EMDR-based trauma therapy was a component. But my experience has been when there is a deep-seated trauma, that a lot of times people, even with the best therapist, they might not have the vitality to deal with it,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Because it's exhausting.
it is.
It is. It is.
So if you can slowly build and nourish and increase that vitality, then I think you have a much better chance of dealing with deep-seated emotional problems. So my
Yes.
goal wasn't like, okay, you're screwed up, let's get you into therapy, right?
Right. Yeah.
My
no.
goal was, hey, let's work on building up your energy,
Mhm.
helping your anemia,
Yes.
working on improving your digestion and elimination, reducing the systemic inflammation, stabilizing your nervous system, building your nervous resilience. And that process took, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then they were ready to engage with a good therapist. And sometimes it's the
Yeah.
opposite, right? Sometimes
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen that where they've gone through the therapy and done all of that stuff, and yet still the illness is lingering.
Mhm.
And what I've noticed, there was a post that Sean Donahue made on Facebook last spring,
Mhm.
and he noted that in the fascia, which is the cellular or the fluid and
Mhm.
stuff all around pretty much everything in your body,
Mhm.
Joints and-
the fluid that holds toxins, that holds essentially chemical components
Mhm.
that are very strongly linked to all those emotional things. And when he posted that, I was like, yeah, that's brilliant, because I know that for myself, whenever I've done like a massage therapy, for instance, when I was healing some back problems that I've had, you do the massage therapy and all this like stuff would come up as the massage therapist is moving the fascia around, just getting it moving again. And then my body processes that out. And the stuff that was coming up was stuff that I'd already dealt with. I've done my therapy, I've done my work, I've done my spiritual work, I've done my journey work, I've done thousands of things to heal this. And the last piece that's so often missed in therapy is the physical component. It's still rooted in your body. You have to get it out of your body the rest of the way.
Mhm.
When emotionally it stopped getting processed or was blocked, it also physically got blocked.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and like just to throw a shout out to Sean Donahue.
yeah.
you can find SeanDonohueHerbalist.com, and the Portland School of Herbal Wisdom is his school. And I believe this year's full-time program is going to include lectures by Kenneth Profrick, which is joining him, and Ray, I forget her last name. But Sean, I think the world of him. He has a really great thing going on at his herb school. So if you get a chance to check out his writings or his school, he's really accessible and has some amazing stuff.
Definitely, yeah. I met him briefly, and I really would like the opportunity to get to chat with him again, because he was a neat guy.
He really is, yeah. And, he has branded himself as the somatic herbalist, and I love that, right? So he, one of his philosophical roots is that he wants to help people embody their body.
Nice.
And,
I like that.
I think about a lot of the problems that I see in my practice, and it often has to do with how we identify ourselves, and are we in connection with our body? Are we viscerally experiencing our world, or are we stuck in our head, or are we stuck in past trauma? Are we worried about future problems, or are we in the present? And Sean does an amazing job of integrating modern psychiatric somatic practices with herbal adjuncts that help you embody your body. So you mentioned him, and I just wanted to give him a little bit more of a shout out.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
so bring that back around.
Let's bring that back around. Healing is so multifaceted, and sometimes what people need is just a little gentle advice and nudge in the right direction. And sometimes people need a swift kick in the ass, and sometimes people need a place to go to get away from life's shit.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, some of my most profound breakthroughs have happened when I've been completely out of, like I'm traveling, or I'm just out of my normal routine, away from the family. Not that I don't love my family, but it breaks all those responsibilities and gives you a freeness to be able to examine the patterns that you've picked up. Sometimes those patterns, you picked them up years ago when it made sense, and now it doesn't make sense, yet you still persisted in the pattern.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things with kids having a chance to go to camp.
Yeah.
Like there's camps that are specifically for kids that have had a death in the family or different things like that. It just pulls them out of the space that they're in and gives them a chance to kind of shake their heads. And then say, okay, maybe it's not okay, but right now it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
When I go back home, it's probably going to be shitty again.
Right.
But for right now, I'm breathing.
Yeah.
And I can look at things and reevaluate and know that this isn't forever. If it's not real this week, and other things are my priority, that means in the future, some of those things that I'm just barely surviving at home, they're not going to be forever too. Right. That's a really healing space.
That is.
Well, so going someplace for a healing retreat isn't accessible to everyone. So I want to try a thought experiment.
Okay.
Let's
do it. All right.
Unscripted thought experiment.
I'll do that.
How might we make this something that is more easily obtainable for the average person, right? Here is one suggestion that I've made to some of my clients, and frequently they love the suggestion, right? I often will ask people to do a 3-day sleep challenge. Paul Bergner introduced me.
Sleep for 3 days?
Paul Bergner introduced me to the idea where you ask people to stay in a dark room, attempting to sleep or rest for 12 consecutive hours for 3 consecutive days.
I love that.
And it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So here's the thing. So if you can't go to sleep, that's fine.
You just lay there.
Oh, you have to hold still for 12 hours?
No, you don't. No, if you can't go to sleep, you can read a book, but
Yeah.
no tech, in a relaxing environment for 12 hours. And here's the second key. Give your body permission to rest as much as it wants
Yes.
to, right?
Yes.
So that
Well,
in
my
and of
cats
itself.
would love that. My cats, they probably put that idea in your head.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But yeah,
a 3-day sleep challenge is difficult to do in your normal environment.
it is.
Right?
It is.
So I kind of take that one step further and I say, hey, how can you create space, not for a 12-hour sleep challenge, but for 3 days of no tech, no drama, no bullshit?
Well, I
Yes.
like those last two.
Yes. I'll tell you how I do that.
How do you do that?
I send my family off camping.
Okay.
And I stay home.
Yeah.
And I mean,
A staycation.
yes.
Absolutely.
And I stay home. And yeah, I still have, animals to tend to and things like that. But it gives me the space to really, I can turn off all the TV and everything.
Mhm.
I stop checking Facebook and all the social media and all of that. Sometimes I will decide to listen to a lecture and when I do that, it has to be very specific. Like I might listen to a lecture on Zen Buddhism, something that's really or yoga, yoga breathing or Ayurvedic theory, but it's got to be something that's really about getting my mind and myself to be quiet. And then I just be, and yeah, I might still be knitting or something. I might be in motion, but if my focus is on being and not trying to accomplish a bunch of stuff, it gives me space to breathe.
Yeah. I've had people get an Airbnb for $30 a night
That's
in the same
excellent.
town, but
Yeah.
not at their house, not
Yes.
with their responsibilities, with their
Yes.
family,
Yeah.
My family is the least of my problems.
I can hardly picture you being still long enough, just to do 3
It's
days.
scary.
No.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. Well, remember we went to the American Herbalist Guild conference?
Oh, you had
And
a
then
hard
we
time.
had the meltdown.
Yeah.
And I'm like, trying to literally keep my clinic physically together.
Right. Yeah.
You just, there's.
Yeah, you have a hard time checking out.
Well, there.
Yeah,
I'm not saying please have a trauma whilst I am gone.
Right, right. Well, I mean, the last time I left town, that I hadn't even flown out. I was at the airport, and we have. Patrick's already starting to laugh. I have pastures, as it were, in my little urban. I have city farm, right? So I'm tiny, but I have the front yard is fenced. The backyard has multiple, 3 different fenced areas. And my big, huge black dog got through the little itty bitty goose gate, which we call the Bifrost, and went into the back with the goose and the ducks and the chickens, who were out as they should be. And the ducks now call him the Black Terror. That was the day of the Black Terror. And the chickens ran off and they hid, and the ducks got around him somehow and went to the front yard. And our goose guarded the passage. And
Wow.
scared I'm not even out of the city yet, and already the farm's in a ruckus.
Mhm.
Thankfully nobody was hurt. One of the ducks stopped laying eggs for a while, but that we're good. Everybody survived, and it's a colorful story. But gee whiz, sometimes it feels like if you leave, everything will fall apart.
I don't feel like I need to control it all. It just, in the month of May, I will be gone for a week.
Mhm.
And telling that to the people that I work with gave them significant pause.
Mhm.
And I think it's because there's a bunch of things that I do, and there isn't a bunch of people that will be doing those things.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So then what?
Life goes on.
Mm-hmm.
That's then what?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
flew from North Carolina to Eugene and went to the woods with Howie Brownstein, and not having cell service for 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of freaky, but
The first day, I went Tuesday for the first time, and halfway through the day, I noticed and thought, why is my stomach so tense? Right? Because I don't know what's going on with the employees and students and
all
family
those,
and all of those things. And there wasn't a thing I could do about it.
Yeah, right?
And then I just...
You have to let go. You have to trust.
Sometimes you have to let go of the illusion of control.
Yeah.
To fully unwind and be in the present moment.
Yeah.
And I know this, and I've taught this for years, but still, I was in the woods for 5 or 6 hours without even realizing that I was still holding on to this illusion of control.
Right.
And then I went back today, and it was just miraculous.
Yeah.
When was the last time you gave yourself permission to just go and lay down in the woods and stare at the trees and the sun filtering through? When was the last time you gave yourself permission to let go of the responsibilities for everyone and everything else? And that's what
it's about.
That's really what convalescing and recovering is about.
Yeah, it is. It is. I try to make those spaces in my life. I've been frustrated, I have to admit, since the child hit high school, roughly. I found
he
it
did hit
harder.
high school roughly.
Yeah, he did. Well, let's not even go there. That's a whole nother story. But ever since, I found it harder and harder. When he was younger, it was easy to send the guys off for, a weekend or make space for myself. But life has gotten more and more complex, and I find it harder and harder. I do go out of my way to take, certain times of the week. I'll give myself 2 hours on certain days, certain mornings. These are my 2 hours. I'm not checking Facebook or any of that stuff. I'm making space. And I usually pull out my journal and I start writing so that I can dump all the crap in my head out. And then I hit a point where it's like quiet, and I mean, for me to be able to do that, I have to get everybody out of the house. Even if they're all just doing their own things, it's hard for me to let go of that responsibility. My son's always like, oh, you should just relax. I'm going to go out and hang out in the grotto. You don't have to be mom. I'm like, you're present. I'm mom. I can't seem to turn that off. I'm always responsible. So I need to get away from it completely so that I can just breathe and be me instead of be the role of what I've been. It's easy to confuse the role of what you do, mom, with who you are, Candace.
Yeah, right.
And when we don't take those costumes off and give ourselves time to breathe and be ourselves again, we can create a lot of damage. I mean, I know I have anyway.
Well, in herbalism, we talk about, I guess with any practice or practitioner, we talk about creating space or holding space for our clients.
Yes.
Right? And we do this by making sure that they feel comfortable and safe and secure and not holding judgment no matter what happens.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I wonder if the step beyond that is helping teach our clients to hold their own space.
Yes.
I mean, what would life look like if we treated ourselves with no judgment and in safety and security the way that we treat our clients? And what would happen if we could teach them how to treat themselves that way? So that's what's been on my mind, and I hope that I can eventually create a place where this type of care can be offered and safe space can be held, and people can then learn to hold it for themselves.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen.
Well, you got to come check out my place.
I do. Sounds like another retreat. I think my herbalist said I must retreat to Low Gap.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so very much, Thomas. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, it really has. Thank you all for having me.
How do people get a hold of you?
Eclectic School of Herbal Medicine.com, functionalherbalism.com. Shoot me a message. Love to hear from you.
All right.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
And as we always say,
Put an herb on it.
The statements made about herbs and products on this podcast have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided on this podcast or any affiliated websites is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional. You should not use the information on this podcast and its affiliated websites for a diagnosis or treatment of any health problem. Always consult with a healthcare professional before starting any new vitamins, supplements, diet, or exercise program before taking any medication, or if you have or suspect you might have a health problem. Any testimonials, questions, or case studies are based on individual results and do not constitute a guarantee that you will achieve the same results.